Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now is a man who's got a massive brain. He's from the state of West Virginia. He used to be a lawyer, then he decided to take his talents to the internet. His blog has been sold twice, once to ESPN, then he rebooted and sold it to NBC. A trailblazer in the internet, a trailblazer in the football world, a man who knows everything about everything until he gets questioned by somebody, which happened yesterday, kicking off a new segment called Internet Beef. Mike Florio. Pro Football Talk. What's up, Mike?
Pat, it's always great to talk to you. And let me just say this. I have been doing radio spots for the last 18 years, and your show is the only one where, first of all, I make the call. Everybody else calls me, but because I love you, I call you. And when I dial the number, I don't get hello, I don't get please hold. All I hear is, I don't even hear a ring. All I hear is, ladies and gentlemen. I love it.
I'm going to be honest, Mike. I don't know if we can call you and record it. I don't know. I don't think we understand the tech side of that. Let's dive right into it. You got into a hilarious altercation with a Stanford grad, Richard Sherman, on the internet over a potential beef in the NFLPA agent meeting with CBA conversation. Can you elaborate a little bit and why Richard Sherman was wrong and you were right?
Yeah, let me keep it as simple as possible.
Thank you.
And let me just say this. I believe that there is no one currently in the media that covers the NFL that advocates more for player rights and player interests than I do.
I agree.
I'm the only one. I stand out in the street and say they should get rid of the draft, that players coming out of college should be able to pick their first team, and folks lose their mind. But I've converted many people to believe that that is the fair thing to do, that it's unfair to tell a guy where you're going to go play. They should be allowed to pick where they're going to go just like they pick which college they go to. But anyway, that's just one example of a way that I'm always very sensitive to the rights of the players.
Agreed.
I caught wind of a memo that summarized a meeting that happened last Monday between roughly 60 players and a handful of agents. And the players brought the agents in because apparently the players wanted input from the agents on how to prepare for the expiration of the current labor deal coming up in less than 2 years. Is there going to be a lockout? Is there going to be a strike, et cetera? And it got contentious. And the memo created by the NFL Players Association made it clear that it got heated, it got contentious, and at times it got ugly. And the memo expresses a very strong degree of concern about some of the things that some of the agents said. So I got the memo. I wrote a story yesterday about what is reflected in the memo that was prepared by the union, not by the agents, not by anybody else, but by the union. And Richard Sherman, who's a member of the union's executive committee, immediately took issue. He took issue so fast, I don't even think he read my story. So I said, hey, I guess I have to post the whole memo in order to let people decide whether or not it was a contentious meeting. And then it all went downhill or uphill from there, and he kept taking shots at me all day long. And some of the things he said were just untrue, but it's impossible to, shouting into that vacuum, that void of Twitter, convince people that you're right and someone else is wrong. But the bottom line is, he shouldn't be fighting with me, and he definitely shouldn't be fighting with me on an issue on which I am factually correct. And if I was wrong, I'd say so. So, yeah, that was my Sunday. That was my nice, relaxing, like Sunday. It's like, hey, this is going to be a nice, relaxing day, right? Get a refuel, recharge before we do PFT Live for 5 days. And I got to travel a couple of times this week. We're going to Arizona next weekend for the league meetings. Like, this is a nice day where things will just kind of slow down, but nope.
I love that as soon as Richard Sherman responded to you, like his followers who didn't even read anything you said were saying that, Florio got buried. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think Florio did. What is the big deal right now? So why would they call the agents in for the CBA? So let me get this straight. The CBA is up in 2 years. Everybody knows that. Whenever it was renegotiated in 2010, everybody knew that there's going to be another one of these in 10 years. We're just staring down the what is it called? The barrel of the gun, where everybody knows this is coming in 10 years. The NFLPA has been run by the same guy for that entire time. I won't say anything bad about him. I don't think he's great at his job. I saw him at a Super Bowl. He wore 3 different suits in one day. I saw him at 3 different events. I don't love the guy. I think he's a little bit too flashy for his job. They bring in agents, and agents, there's a lot of good agents. I think there's some good agents, but there's a lot of bad agents too, and I'd assume that some of them were in there as well. What was the entire meeting about? What were the agents telling players? What was that whole thing about?
Well, here's what I think led to the meeting. After the last CBA was done, there was plenty of criticism of DeMaurice Smith, the NFLPA executive director, by agents. They weren't happy with the deal that was done. They weren't happy that they didn't have a seat at the table. And I have been pushing back against some of them for years, saying, look, when you have one hand tied behind your back, when you have a group of players who will never miss a game check, and you're going against a group of owners who will shut the league down for a full season and are ready to do it, you have a disadvantage. And you do the best deal you can in light of the fact that your players refuse to miss 1 week, much less 1 year of game checks. So he did the best deal he could given those circumstances. So I think that acrimony has been bubbling for 8 years. You throw on top of it the fact that the union's executive committee has both Richard Sherman and Russell Okung on it now, both of whom negotiated their own contracts, both of whom are trying to advocate to other players that they don't need agents, both of whom are making a mistake by both representing themselves and telling others to do the same. You throw that together, and there's a lot of resentment between Sherman, Okung, and the agents over the criticism that both of those guys received for doing their own deals because they both did bad deals. Okung's second deal was a lot better, but his first deal was a disaster. Sherman's deal last year was a disaster. So that is all bubbling up. That's all there, and they bring these agents in because I think basically what they want to be able to say to the agents, okay, fine, wise guys, tell us what we should do. You get a seat at the table now. You fix this. You tell us what we need to do. And that attitude, I think, permeated it, especially early in the meeting when things got contentious and things got heated. And let me give you an example. The players want to get rid of the franchise tag. So my understanding is one of the agents who was at this meeting said, all right, you want to get rid of the franchise tag, play 18 games. And the players lost their minds. It's like, well, but that's the kind of concession you have to make in collective bargaining
in business
to get management to give up something big. They're not giving up the franchise tag without something big in return. And that may not even be big enough. 18 games may not be big enough because the franchise tag allows them to keep guys off the market and hold the overall price for every position down because the best players never get to go set the bar as high as they can. And so I just think there's a lot of hostility that's been pent up, and they need to work it out and they need to get on the same page or the owners are going to win again.
The owners are going to win regardless. I mean, Jeff Saturday had to go in there and negotiate that goddamn thing, and it was obvious what by the end of it. I think it's interesting, though, that the business relationship between the NFLPA and the owners is a real one. I mean, you have to be, they're business partners, right? Can't have one without the other. But it's never been treated that way. The NFLPA is always ready to go to war with the NFL, and I assume the NFL is always ready to go to war with the NFLPA. And it got to the point where, now granted, I probably should have joined the NFLPA committee, whatever, and had my voice be heard. Instead, I just skipped the meetings and didn't sign up for it because I was sick of their bullshit. But I was literally one of the only players that didn't sign up for the fucking union my last couple of years because I was just sick of the bullshit. But I think in a negotiation, you have to give up something to get something in return. And it seems like on both sides, both the NFL and the NFLPA, there's no real business conversations. Like, I think a 17-game schedule is better, but you add a bye week. So now you got 18 weeks of football, add another bye week. Now we're both winning on the back end. To get rid of a preseason game, only have 3 preseason games. Only 2 of them matter. The third one's the fourth. Add one more game, add a bye week. Now we're all getting into the pot together, shaking hands. But that type of thing never happens because they're like, well, if we do that, then the NFL is going to want to cut our paychecks by an 18. It's like, how do you know that? How do you even know that if that's ever been addressed? I feel like there's no real negotiation between the NFLPA and the NFL. I don't know if that's accurate. I feel like you know more than I do.
Well, here's the thing, Pat. I think that negotiation that happens within the confines of formal bargaining, the foundation for that is laid by conversations that are had off the grid, right? Back channel discussions. And I think when Gene Upshaw was running the NFLPA and Paul Tagliabue was the commissioner of the NFL, they had those back channel discussions to kind of engineer things toward where they needed to be. You don't have that now. There's not a relationship of trust and mutual respect between Roger Goodell and DeMaurice Smith, which makes it hard to have everything kind of arranged ahead of time. Not that the deal gets done ahead of time, but you've got an understanding of what the issues are going to be. You have an understanding of how you're going to work through the issues. There isn't enough of that. I don't think there's any of that. And that's one thing that I think the union needs to realize. They can use the agents as a way to be kind of like the emissary to talk to certain people from management, because the agents, good agents, know everybody. They know owners. They know people in the league office. They know GMs. They know executives. They know people who are in the room with the management council negotiating these deals. And if you get the right agents involved, they can be the ones who create the back channel. If DeMaurice Smith can't create the back channel, trust some agents who you believe can do it, and that's how you figure out ahead of time what it's going to take, instead of everybody getting in the room with what they want and the wheels spinning and nothing getting done. And the reason, Pat, that and you tell me if I'm wrong.
Right.
I mean, anytime there's a labor contract and a union involvement and the contract expires, the owners can either lock out the players until or the employees in any setting. The owners can lock out the employees until the employees accept the terms of the new contract, or the employees can go on strike. Either way, you have to have both sides willing to take a work stoppage in order to have the best possible deal to avoid a work stoppage. The problem here is the owners will take a work stoppage and the players won't. And until the players will, it's going to be impossible to get the best possible deal. But the players won't take a work stoppage. And at this point, the only way the owners are going to believe it is if they do it, and they do it for at least half of a season, if not a full season. But how do you tell a kid who's 23, who's got no money saved, he just got drafted, that he's not going to make any money at all this year? Or what about the guy who signed the big contract the year before the work stoppage, and now he can't make his mortgage payments, and now he can't pay this and pay that? His money's going to be gone for a year. So it's very difficult to do, and that's where the imbalance is, and that's why, there are some people who don't like the deal that the union did. Well, if you're not willing to take a work stoppage, you're not going to get the best possible deal.
See, I might be wrong here, but the last time this was going to happen in 2010, I was 23 years old, by the way, and they had told us literally since as soon as I got into the NFL, prepare for a work stoppage. Like, you need to be saving money for a work stoppage. It's going to come in 2010. It's going to happen. We all know it's going to happen. We just don't know how long for. I was prepared and ready to go. I had spent all my money from my first year traveling, but that second year I collected. I had a good time with it. I love the work stoppage. I think everybody, I think if you were to poll every vet that has ever played in the NFL during that work stoppage, they're like, yeah, fuck, every year we wish that would happen, where we don't have to come back till training camp, have all OTAs off and everything like that. It's a lot more difficult, though, for the rookies who are just getting drafted that can't go to work. They're not even allowed to talk. They have no money. They just kind of have to sit around. I think a lot more guys are prepared for a work stoppage than you would think, but there's obviously going to be some outliers who are ready to go broke at any given moment if they don't get a paycheck. I'll be excited to see how it is. This is just the NFL, by the way. Once again, dominating the news cycle here, 2 years away from a potential work stoppage. Now a conversation is becoming around it. The NFL has a beautiful way of doing that. What is some of the big news stories right now in the NFL that we should be looking forward to break? I mean, we had the first round of free agents go through. Everybody knows AB and the Steelers drama is done. Everybody knows Lev Bell was going to go to the Jets. I think we found that out as soon as Ballard basically said, we're out. Everybody knew he was going to the Jets. The Browns now are the AFC North favorites. What is something else that's going to come from the NFL, you think, in the next couple of days to try to steal some shine from March Madness?
Well, two things to keep an eye on. First, it just popped today that the Bengals have released linebacker Vontaze Burfict, and a year ago there was a thought that maybe the Raiders would try to trade for him because Paul Gunther, who was the Bengals defensive coordinator, is now the defensive coordinator under John Gruden. But let me tell you, it would be awkward but also fascinating to have Vontaze Burfict and Antonio Brown on the same team after all the stuff that went down between the two of them.
They both hate Juju.
What's that?
They both hate Juju.
Well, now you know what? Maybe they can find. That's a good point. The enemy, my enemy is my friend. Maybe that's where they should go. Vontaze Burfict to the Raiders. He and Antonio Brown get together and have their "We Hate Juju" meeting, and that may be the way to go. I could see the Browns doing it because Vontaze Burfict's relationship with the Steelers, but that one's going to be interesting to see where he lands. Also, I don't know if you saw this, Pat. It happened on Friday afternoon, reporting the Kansas City Star that Tyreek Hill, one of the most dangerous players in the entire NFL, under investigation for possible child abuse. He's got that ugly history, the incident where he pleaded guilty to assaulting his then-pregnant girlfriend. He didn't get suspended by the league because it happened before he got drafted, but under the personal conduct policy, if you get in trouble when you're in the league, things you did before you got to the league can cause the NFL to bump up the punishment. And also, if the victim of any type of domestic violence is a child, the NFL can bump up the punishment. And if it turns out that he did what he's being investigated, and it's if right now. There's no proof that anything happened that we know about, but we know based upon a Kansas City Star report that he is being investigated. If there's any proof, if it is determined that he did something like that, then I don't know what the NFL is going to do, but it's something to keep an eye on because, with investigations like this, sometimes they can move quickly, and sometimes we may know sooner rather than later whether or not he's going to be in any kind of trouble. But he hasn't been arrested or charged yet, but that's something that I've been keeping an eye on around the clock for the last 3 days.
Would you call the police station and ask for information?
No, because they're not going to give me any. There's going to be reports that are out there, and the public information that's available is very sketchy. I think at this point you just wait for the powers that be to decide whether or not they're going to charge him. Now, the big J's in Kansas City may be snooping around and talking to people from the police department, and they've got the relationships already. I wouldn't even know who to call there to try to get background information or anything like that. And I'm always nervous about something like that. One thing that I learned practicing law before I got into this business, there are certain hot spots where if you make one wrong move, you can get sued. This is the kind of thing where if you start reporting things that aren't accurate, that aren't true, that paint somebody in a negative light, that they did something that violates the law, you're in a legal jackpot, and I'm content to wait for the folks in Kansas City to get to the bottom of it or for the authorities there to make an announcement. So we just sit back and we wait, and then once it comes out, then we react to it and try to break it down and analyze it for everyone.
We're talking about one of the most explosive players to ever come into the NFL, ever. Not just current, not just any. One of the most explosive players to ever come into the NFL. Seemed like he had righted his wrong from college. He made a young, dumb mistake whenever he was in college. I assume that is the way they're painting it. He's becoming a reborn man in the NFL. Kansas City's falling in love with him, and then this happens. It's like, God damn, man, just keep your nose clean. You're about to make hundreds of millions of dollars probably with how good you are. Let's pivot. Kareem Hunt, 8-game suspension. Did the NFL get it right?
Well, here's what I think the NFL has figured out. Instead of suspending a guy for 12 games and forcing him to file an appeal, and then during that appeal process, all the evidence comes out about what a bad investigation it was and what an unfair thought and decision-making process the NFL used, like we saw with Ezekiel Elliott. What the NFL has started doing, and they did it with Jameis Winston, and I believe they did it again with Kareem Hunt. Anytime a guy gets suspended under the personal conduct policy and the announcement is that he's not appealing, that, to me, is an indication that they got with him, got with his agent, and worked out a deal. So the NFL doesn't have to risk embarrassment if there's an attack in the confines of an appeal. Because every time one of these decisions get made, and it's time to start looking into the nooks and crannies of how the NFL investigated it, how they went about reaching the decision, we find something that makes the whole process look horrible. So I think they went to Kareem Hunt and said, look, we can suspend you 12 games if we want to. We can suspend you the whole season if we want to. We're offering you 8. Will you take 8? He takes 8. And I don't know, did they get it right? Did they not get it right? I've seen the video. The video wasn't Ray Rice level. I mean, it was still evidence of something he shouldn't have done, and he should have been punished. But 8 games is a stiff punishment. It's the baseline of 6 plus 2 on top of it. There was another incident where he allegedly hit somebody in June somewhere in Ohio of last year. That's part of this too, but that's a stiff punishment. And the video, you take away the video, he probably doesn't get punished at all. But when there's video, as we've seen time and again, that's the thing that gets a guy in serious trouble with the NFL.
Same with the cops, too, by the way. Video has really changed the life of law enforcement officers. There was a rumor, I think I might have read it on yours. The Patriots made a better offer to the Steelers for Antonio Brown, but the Steelers refused to give it up.
I don't think that's accurate. I saw that somewhere, and I don't know if someone was misrepresented or mischaracterized. My understanding was the Steelers wanted nothing to do with Antonio Brown, or the Patriots, rather, wanted nothing to do with Antonio Brown. The Steelers wanted nothing to do with him either. But I think that the Patriots recognize that you bring a guy like Antonio Brown into your shop, it's probably not going to work. He's either got to conform to the Patriot way quickly or he's not going to make it. And I think of Chad Johnson when he got traded to the Patriots after the lockout ended in 2011. He had his wings clipped. They stripped away his individuality. He was no longer himself. And at one point, I tweeted that sentiment, and he retweeted it or liked it or something, which made me think he must agree with me on this, that they made him different than who he is. And I think with Antonio Brown, if you try to make him different from who he is, he's not going to be who he is. And I just don't think the Patriots want that. They got one set of rules. They're not going to make any excuses. If a guy shows up late or a guy wants to, not do what everyone else on his team is doing, that's not going to fly. So, I'm convinced. And I've been told that the Patriots had no interest in him whatsoever at no time and wouldn't have wanted him. Now, Odell Beckham, different story. But Antonio Brown, not somebody that they would have wanted.
Hey, Randy Moss was able to be Randy Moss up there. I don't know.
Well, for a little while. It worked for a little while. It worked for 2007, 2008, 2009, then into 2010. He started grousing about his contract's going to be up, and he started to make some noise. And what they do, they immediately traded him to the Vikings.
For a fourth rounder. I remember that.
Third rounder, and the Vikings cut him 3 weeks later.
Oh, I remember that because I put a tweet out. That was, I got crushed for. I was like, Randy Moss is worth a third rounder now or something like that. And everybody was like, you think you're smarter than Bill Belichick? Everybody started coming after me, and then they cut him a couple weeks later. I was like, I guess.
Well, yeah, they cut him because they had catering in the locker room. It was a Friday before a game. And he yelled out, "I wouldn't feed this shit to my dogs," and he got cut.
That's before he got money.
Randy. Belichick showed up to his Hall of Fame thing in sandals, though. So let's remember Belichick. Belichick is Belichick an entirely new person, by the way? They won a Super Bowl. I thought him changing was going to hurt the Patriots. They end up winning a Super Bowl and turns out being even better. I mean, Tom Brady is openly showing videos of him fucking up on a ski slope. Belichick is shirtless at the beach with his lady. It seems like the Patriot way might be a little bit of a happier one. Is this trouble for the rest of the NFL, you think, Florio?
Yeah, I think they've changed the saying to no shirt, no shoes, no days off. I think that's the Belichick way. I mean, because the thing is, he still busts his ass, right?
Yep.
He still is who he is and does what he does. And we get caught up in the Chiefs and how great Patrick Mahomes is, and he is great. And when you look at how concentrated the young star talent is in the AFC right now, when you have Odell Beckham coming to the AFC, you've got Baker Mayfield, you've got Josh Allen, who I think is going to be great. You've got Sam Darnold and Le'Veon Bell on the same team.
Hey, Josh Allen's agent sucks. I just had to get that in because we were talking about agents.
You don't like Josh Allen?
I like Josh Allen. His agent's a piece of shit, but I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Who's his agent, Ryan Grigson?
Hey, we're past that. Mike, we're past that. Yeah, we're past that. But yeah, the AFC's
but
loaded.
When you look at even with all that, Pat, the Patriots are still the Patriots, right? And they're still going to be there when the dust settles. The question is, can they punch through the last two spots, AFC Championship and Super Bowl? Because we know they're going to be in the AFC Championship because they've been in it every year since 2011. At a certain point, you just have to assume they're going to be back there until someone proves us otherwise. And as long as Bill Belichick and Tom Brady keep coming back, I'm going to say this team is going to be in the Final Four. The question is, will they be playing at home or on the road? And if they're on the road, can they find a way to win like they did in Kansas City?
I'm a big fan of the way they run their shit up there. Also, big fan of the way you operate, Mr. Florio. I appreciate you so much for stopping by, dropping all the news. Who you got winning the college basketball?
West Virginia.
Let's go. Not even in the tournament. Hey, I think Huggins invited me to his fantasy camp thing.
You should go. That'd be great. That would be excellent.
Are you going to stop by if I go?
Possibly.
Hey,
I'm not invited, though. Huggins. I've never met Huggins. I think Huggins is great. And I think what they did, they got it together. I don't know what went wrong this year. I don't pay much attention to it. But, they won a couple of games in the Big 12 tournament. And I actually tuned in and watched the game Friday night. Of course, that was the time for them to lose. But, I don't know. They've been so good under Huggins. It was really disappointing this year. But, again, when they're good, I jump on the bandwagon. When they're not, it's like, I don't pay any attention to that crap.
Well, you got a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to cheer for losers. I think Huggins will turn them around. They got this white chocolate kid named McCabe. I guess he's from Kansas or something. He's going to be the point guard. He was, I guess the announcers were saying that Huggins told him, no matter if you're 2 for 18 or 18 for 18, you're our guy. So he just started throwing up shit. I think he's going to have a lot of confidence going into next year. Could be a fun guy to watch, something to think about.
Well, and the other thing that gets me through the slow times, if they ever come, the Penguins. Are the Penguins good this year?
Fucking
I hope they make it to the playoffs.
Hey, Mike.
Are they any good?
I don't want to fucking talk about it. So I've only watched 2 games this year of the Penguins. It was a stadium series against the Flyers a couple weeks ago. We were dominant until like the last minute and 20 seconds, and then Matt Murray became a fucking Swiss cheese goal. Overtime, we lose. Then just again on Sunday, last night, Pens Flyers in Pittsburgh, 1-0 game with fucking 19 seconds left, I believe. They pulled their goalie. Matt Murray was just standing on his head. Sidney Crosby gives away the puck in the center ice. They get down, tie it up, and then literally 3.4 seconds left in overtime, they hit a fucking finisher to just bury us. And it was just, those are the only 2 games I've seen, and that's hockey talk.
See, I'm glad I'm not paying attention. If they make it to the playoffs, I'll pay attention. Even if I love NHL playoffs, so they're better when the Penguins are in it. But it's perfect because right after the draft, it really starts to get rolling, and you can enjoy that right into June. But man, those guys are tough, and the stuff they deal with the blades on their feet and the sticks and that puck whizzing around and the hard boards. It's just amazing to me how many games they play every year and survive.
I am so impressed by hockey. It's my favorite sport to watch. Penguins are going to make the playoffs. I think we're going to go on a run too. Sid had a terrible game on Sunday, so I assume he's going to get back hot. Here's a question that I asked while watching the game last night, Mike. Do you think that any let's go top NHL skaters, any one of them could become Olympians if they wanted to? If there was nobody else on the ice, do you think Sidney Crosby could jump up and spin in a circle and land perfectly? I think he could.
Oh, you're talking about figure skaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, I had never really thought about that. I thought you were going to say, like, could any NHL players, like, make it in the NFL or something like that? I mean, the thing is, they're all, like, 5'5" and 120 pounds. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the whole figure skating thing. But when you look at the stuff they do with their bodies when they have guys dragging them down and hitting them with clubs and, if you were just out there by yourself and you didn't have to contend with anybody else, you could probably do anything.
I think Sidney Crosby could be an Olympian figure skater if he wanted to. Just what does he got to do?
I'm picturing him in sequins.
Oh yeah, very much. I'm thinking him in the Will Ferrell
Blades
of Glory blue suit. I think him and Evgeny Malkin could do the watermelon. What's it called?
Oh, the Flying Lotus.
The Flying Lotus, the Dutchman.
Hey, let me tell you something. I don't know how you feel about Blades of Glory. I have walked out of one movie in my life, and it was Blades of Glory.
I did that
the only time I ever did it.
I did that for the movie Pop Star. Here's a little inside scoop, by the way. I got a little inside scoop for you.
Go ahead.
ESPN's pursuing Peyton Manning for Monday Night Football. But I've been told my name is still a talking piece, Mr. Florio. Our intel says my name is still a talking piece. We trended for 10 hours, Florio. McAfee for MNF trended.
You did an excellent job of injecting your name into that conversation. I'm very impressed with your marketing savvy.
Grassroots.
But do you think, with that army of an analyst that they have there, an army, it's a full army with lieutenants and generals and sergeants. I mean, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
You think they're going to roll with? I mean, it would be great if they did.
Hey.
And maybe you know something I don't.
Hey,
but
there's something that no army can handle, and that's special forces. You put a microphone in my fucking hand, I'm a Navy SEAL. Everybody knows that.
SEAL Team Boomstick.
All right, Florio, I know you're probably busy. Just a little intel, by the way. Little inside scoop right there for you if you want.
I'll keep my eyes open. Hey, feel free to text me if you hear anything good about it, and I can break some news, baby. We got to stick together.
All right, I'll send it right to you. I appreciate you. Tell Richard Sherman to go to hell with your big brain. Ladies and gentlemen, Pro Football Talks, Mike Florio. Thank you, Mike.
See you guys.